Welcome to the Audio Architect Room Combine overview video. Hotels, conference facilities, and even houses of worship often require flexible room configurations in order to host a wide array of events. These facilities will more than likely have two or more rooms adjacent to one another that may function either independently or as a single large room. When the option to combine rooms is selected, the goal is to provide a functional user experience in allowing for control over each subsystem to work as though they are one. Assuming we are using a BSS SoundWeb London audio processor, due to its open architecture programming, there are actually several ways to accomplish room combining. But let's focus on the easiest way, creating a custom room combine object. A room combine object can be added to any SoundWeb London processor, but does not show up as a processing object by default like other processing objects you may find. In order to be able to add a room combine object into your audio configuration, you must first use the define venue workflow to add the zones that will be included in the room combine object. That doesn't mean they have to be drawn exactly as the building plans, they could simply be square rooms representing each space. Let's add a room for our HiQNet devices to live in and rename it to Rack Room. Then let's add 3 more rooms and rename them to zones 1 through 3, and this is where we will represent where the sound will be reinforced. Once all the rooms have been added to our design, we can then click on the Define Venue tab at the top of our screen to proceed creating a room combine object. This involves first selecting which rooms will be considered a part of the object itself. In this case, we'll select all areas except for the rack room and then click on the Create button in the Room Combine options. Then we must create partitions between every 2 rooms that can be combined. Simply select 2 rooms and click on the Create Partition button in the Room Combine options. The partition is a state variable responsible for initiating the coupling and decoupling of rooms. While on the surface it may look like the partition lives only as a part of the Audio Architect file, it is a state variable contained within the Room Combine object that lives inside your BSS audio configuration and can be controlled by third-party systems, thus not requiring Audio Architect on the network for control. When all partitions are enabled, the space will function as one room. After all partitions have been added, we can then go back to the Add Devices workflow and then into the audio configuration of our processor. For this example, we are using a BSS SoundWeb London Blue 100, and audio source inputs have already been named. Select the Venue Explorer in our design, and then drag and drop the Room Combine object into the audio configuration. We're asked to supply a room output order, which can also double as a priority order dependent upon how we decide to set up the room combine object properties. Now within our audio configuration, let's wire sources and outputs accordingly. Normally we would add other processing necessary for a given application, but we will just focus on the room combine object for this demonstration. Each zone will have its own dedicated source input, and by default we'll find our background music inputs that are always available to each zone regardless of the state of the partition. Each zone also has its own dedicated output. Let's have a quick look at the control panel for the Room Combine object. We find each zone of audio has its own set of controls for source, background music, and master gain in addition to dedicated mutes and source selectors. By default, the background music and source inputs are mixed together before reaching the output stage. Looking over at the available properties, we find that the background music inputs can be increased to a maximum of 24 or decreased to a minimum of 0. The Options tab within the Room Combine properties allows us to dictate the functionality of the object dependent upon the needs of our application, whether it's to combine the output of multiple auto mixers when rooms are combined, or to simply have a room's controls slave to another room's dependent upon a priority. Today we'll turn on the options Priority Partition Mode as well as the Use Signal Names and leave all others in their default state. Notice now how the control panel reflects the signal names of each background music source in addition to a unique room color for each room indicating whether rooms have been combined or not. These colors can be changed under the Group Colors tab within the Room Combine properties. We can use Audio Architect to test that our Room Combine object is functioning correctly before loading the audio configuration to the SoundWeb London device or assigning parameters to various control options. Let's use the Simulate Venue workflow and enter the Room Combine mode for the venue view. Since we are using the priority partition mode, then each zone has the same color found in the group color options in addition to a group number representing its priority. The Room Panel button simply gives us the option to pull up the independent controls for each room. We'll stick with using the default Room Combine panel. For zones 1 and 2, let's change the controls to simulate each room being independently used. Now click on the partition to combine zones 1 and 2, and we see zone 2 take on the same color and priority number as zone 1, and their parameters are matched. When we click on the partition, we can think of this as the action of opening a physical wall partition. When using priority partition mode, zones with a lower priority number will act as the master upon initial combining. Adjusting controls for either zones, we see that all like parameters are mirroring one another, while zone 3 remains independent. If we go ahead and click on the second partition, then we see zone 3 has joined the group with zones 1 and 2, and now all 3 zones are acting as one. Let's go offline to end this simulation. As we just saw, the venue view within Audio Architect can be used as a control and monitoring surface, but what if we want to control it through other means? Take for example a SoundWeb Contrio controller. We can control drag parameters from a control panel like we normally would for any other processing object, but if we look inside the Venue Explorer, we'll find options for controlling parameters such as the room partitions. And we can simply drag and drop the parameter onto a given assignment. Knowing this, we can make the parameters available to any type of control that can interface with SoundWeb London processors. This concludes our look at the Room Combine object. For more information, please refer to the help file in Audio Architect. Thanks for watching.